Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to the Boardroom. For those of you who've been with us before, you will know that we're talking to some of Malta's leading business minds. We're so lucky to have some great insight from some truly wonderful people who are talking to us about what we should expect in the weeks and months to come when it comes to our economy. And today we're going to be talking about strategy specifically. What strategy should we have in place as we start to put our economy into recovery mode? As always, we are live on Facebook today, and we'd love for you to join the conversation. So please do add your comments and your questions below, and we will try to pass them on to our interviewees. If you don't manage to watch us live, don't worry. This will be streamed back on who'swho.mt, which is Malta's leading business portal. Now, as I said, today is all about strategy, starting to plan for the eventualities that are coming up in the weeks and months to come. And we have two very, very good strategy minds with us today. They are Zahra, who of course is president of the Malta Hotels and Restaurants Association. And we have David Xuereb, who is the president of the Malta Chamber of Commerce. Hello and welcome to you both onto the Boardroom. Thank you so much for being with me today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you. Pleasure. So I know that both of you have been very vocal in the past few weeks as we've been talking about shifting into recovery mode. I think we very quickly went from sort of shock, knowing that things were going to change very, very quickly, our worst nightmares coming true, to having to shift into how we cope and, of course, how we plan for the future. David, I'll come to you first. I know, again, Chamber has been very active in sort of planning the way forward. Maybe you could just give me a brief overview of what's been happening in the past few weeks and how sort of your members are starting to adjust and now look to the future.
Okay, quite a long one. So clearly, in the past, we were shocked with what COVID was all about. We were all very concerned with health issues and all that. And of course, we immediately started to realize that there was an effect on economy. So the first actions we took about nearly 3 months ago now is to influence government and ensures that we are able to retain and maintain the relationships between employers and employees through these famous wage supplement schemes, which have been approved through our joint work with MHRA and other constituted bodies. And that's what we know about. In the last couple of weeks, however, we realized that we need to do more than that, because freezing or preserving the relationship between employers and employees, while good, of course, does not restart an economy. We need to really think ahead. So what we've been up to, as of the last 2 months at least, is the putting together of a think tank that enables like-minded people to come together and try to look inside this, what we call foggy crystal ball. That is a crystal ball. We're trying to see through it to see what is going to happen to our economy and our lives post-COVID. Certainly, there will be changes. For those of us who think that things will go back to normal, that is, of course, not quite correct. But the ability to understand what it is that we're heading towards and what is the nature, what are the values of the community out there that will be we're accepting or expecting services, products, or anything else from business needs to be understood. Values are changing. Appreciation for the planet and appreciation for the fragility of our health and our environment have increased. So this think tank together. It engaged approximately 150 people, members of the chamber and not, simply to come together and think strategically across this fog. And what we are seeing now is, after having established the various scenarios that our economy and our quality of life really will go through after this pandemic is over, even frankly during the pandemic, we are now analyzing the information coming from strategic roundtables. That's what we call them. They're of course roundtables, because no one is actually meeting around any table at the moment, because it works very well. That's it. It actually works very well. These media work fantastically well. And so we are actually analyzing what it is that we expect to see and prepare ourselves for in each and every one of the sectors of our economy, to be able to feed back into what will hopefully be a platter, a buffet, if you like, of initiatives that we, first of all, of realities that we need to face, and initiatives that we should prioritize and take. And that, I hope, will become the diction of what the Chamber of Commerce will be talking about sometime in the middle of July.
Thank you, David. Great insight there. And of course, that sounds like such a great idea to be bringing people together to sort of put things into a forward-thinking approach. Obviously, we have to lament about what has happened and to assess where we are, but so crucial at this stage to be looking to the future and even getting excited about the opportunities that might have come out as a result of COVID. Tony, I'll come over to you at this point. You've obviously been incredibly vocal, incredibly active over the past few weeks on behalf of the MHRA. Obviously, the members of the Malta Hotels and Restaurants Association are among the most affected anywhere in the economy. What's it been like for you? How has morale been in your sector specifically? And how have your members started to shift into, again, recovery mode?
Thank you very much, Joe. If I may just make a little comment after David spoke. David, post-COVID, no buffets.
Good one, Tony. Thank you. Good one. At least we have one. No food, though.
So we need a little bit of humor at this moment.
We do, certainly do.
So on or about the 18th of March, on or about the 18th of March, the airport closed. And we went from heroes, had a lot of income, to zero. So you can just imagine how this has affected our members and all the suppliers down the chain line. The tourism produces 2.1 billion in GPD, which is not a small amount. So we were looking at a complete meltdown. We looked at things as they were. Nobody was sure about the health. Everybody was worried, everybody was concerned, everybody was, we were listening to terrible things, but we also realized that there were lives and there were livelihoods. And as we went from week 1 to week 2 to week 3 to week 4, it became clearer and clearer that the lives and the livelihoods had to find a way to live together. Because if we weren't going to look after the livelihoods, we were going to have a very serious problem. And this is why we engaged continuously with government. We have also engaged with the health authorities to talk about the livelihoods as well as the lives. I'm not going to go into the health area because it's not the object of the exercise today, because I do have issues with COVID-19 and the effect of the measures that we took, and whether the actual medicine that we took was even more fatal than the disease is something that we'll talk about in due course once everything is over. But we did want to restart the economy. We could not afford to go forward with this enormous part of the economy closed down. And we had to do this a lot of times in closed circumstances. I was going to say closed room, but nowadays, as David said, most of the meetings are held virtually rather than physically, but and also publicly. And now, thank goodness, we have the airport that is opening on the 1st of July. It's not going to be magic. July is not going to look very successful. The number of flights that are going to be operated compared July 2020 compared to July 2019 are not going to exceed 10%. So that will give you an indication of how good July is. But we have opened the airport, and we have an opportunity to start promoting the island. Going forward is going to be a difficult 24 months. It's not going to be easy, but we have to live with what we have. We are in a very strong position from the point of view we have had 10 years of good business. We've invested a lot in the product, at least from the private sector's point of view. But we're going to have, as David said, to look forward and see how the world is going to be in 3-4 years' time and adjust accordingly.
Absolutely. And Tony, thank you for that insight there. I think I'd be curious to sort of give our viewers a little bit of context when it comes to exactly what those numbers are going to look like and feel like, perhaps not just for the initial tourism sector, but perhaps how the tourism sector could have, or will have rather, massive knock-on effects for other parts of our economy.
Let me give you a figure in euros. In euros, 2019, we had a 2.1 billion industry. In 2020, we're going to lose 1.5 billion, and we're going to remain with about 600 million in revenue. And in 21, we are looking towards losing about 1 billion from the 2.1 billion. So in 2 years, we would have lost 2.5 billion worth of revenue that is gone. It's not going to be there. How many jobs will that 2.5 billion mean? And going forward, are we going to go back to the 2.1 billion, or is post-COVID going to be a different world to what it is at the present moment? For example, we're looking at the European Union at the moment talking about the Green Deal. And we're looking at the European Union also saying, look, we're going to make available to the member states 750 billion in loans and grants, which will have to be repaid back by the European Union. And one of the things that they're saying should be repaid back is through a tax on traveling by air. Now, this is why Prof. Shikluna was talking about prickly pears, because if this is introduced, this tax is introduced, it will hurt our main lifeline, which is people flying into Malta to have their holidays. We have practically zero people coming by sea. So everybody has to fly in and fly out. If there's a tax, this will affect our ability to be competitive with other countries where you don't need to fly in and fly out. So it's looking forward. It's not going to be easy. We are all going to have to really think very hard of where we want to go, where we want to be in 2030, and how we're going to get there. But we've done it before, so we should be able to do it again.
Thank you, Tony. So very sobering insight there, but also at the end, obviously showing us we have come through difficult times before. It's simply a case, it's not simply a case of, but it's obviously advisable to look to the future as quickly as we can. And David, coming to you on sort of that thought process, if I had to ask you when you think Malta's economy is going to recover, would you be in a position to give me an approximate date?
No.
Unsurprising.
Allow me to make this observation, which of course is affecting my mindset right now, and frankly, what we really need to think about. When we look at what what China has been through, because China is always ahead of us in terms of pretty much everything at the moment, because of the time lapse. There's a couple of months between what happened in China, what happened in Europe, and what's happening in Malta. And now look what's happening in South Americas. China is pretty much open. Everything is open. Everything is back to normal. And the economy picked up to about 90% of what it used to be last year. And that's good news. However, and this is the point I would really like to make here, however, that's 10% that China has not yet made up, which could be reflective of what will happen to us at best. So, if it's 1 year, 2 years, I mean, I agree with Tony, it could take a couple of years. Certainly, we still do not know. I mean, going one step back, we still do not know when it is that we are going to have a vaccine that will protect us from this virus once and for all, and therefore remove the need for social distancing, which is really one of those very important suggestions being made by public health authorities, which of course is affecting our businesses, certainly affects restaurants, affects pretty much offices, pretty much, everybody, retail and all that. And that has a knock-on effect. These are influences on the economy that will never allow any economy to go back to 100%. So let's go back to China. China is at the 90%, they call it the 90% economy. You look up The Economist, you read about this. They talk about the 90 percentile economy. So that's the best we can probably aim at if we're good enough to achieve the objectives that China has achieved, 90%. 10% is a major life changer. That 10% is expected to change the manner with which we live, the quality of the life that we lead, the affordability that we will have. That 10% is crucial. That 10% can only be bridged in, two important ways. There probably are others, but two of them are very important. One is re-education and reskilling, therefore the ability to have a workforce that is flexible, that is adaptable, that of course is adaptable also in terms of skills, and able therefore to make the jump from one economy onto another because of the ability to have the skills to do that and the mindset to do that. That is an area in which Malta is very poor. When we look at what's happening at university and what's happening at MCAST and what happens in our secondary schools, I would dare say that the ambition to have a flexible workforce and a workforce that is prepared to reskill in Malta is very poor. And has been poor also, unfortunately, maybe, on account of the super hot economy that we have lived in the last couple of years, wherein many people, many youngsters, thought it fit to just plod on with what they knew without needing to widen their knowledge, or even dared not complete their studies because jobs were available anytime. That's risk number one that we really need to prioritize. Risk number two, or the second priority that could potentially bridge this 10 percentile gap between 90 and 100 is research and development. Now, forget blue sky research. We're not talking about universities organizing for the Maltese to go to space. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about the innovative way with which we are able to conduct our business, and therefore being able to improve our competitivity compared to the rest of the world. Again, here, research and development, Malta fares very poorly and has been faring very poorly for many years. So the ambition now, if we're able to realize this, what I've just said, if I'm right, and I'm no economist, mind you, for all those of us, for those of you seeing me, I'm an architect, so please do not ever get the impression that I'm an expert in this field. However, I read a lot, and I'm surrounded by people who speak to me quite a bit. And if research and development is the area that we really need to get into, apart from reskilling, then we have another gap that we need to bridge. This is really, in my mind, in our mind, is really what is going to make us able to go back to where we were. And when I say we were, in terms of numbers, not necessarily in terms of activity, but in terms of numbers, in terms of overall GDP, overall revenues, overall quality of life, if we're able to measure ourselves to try and get back to where we were before COVID, we really need to focus on reskilling, retraining, and research and development. There's going to be a lot of movement from one industry to another, which is not necessarily bad. I actually think it's good. But if we are not prepared to take that leap, if we're not able to have the right resources to do it, then that is where our risks lies. And therefore, the incentive schemes that we've heard the government launch last Monday are great, as long as we realize that these are stopgap initiatives and we should be using this time to really think hard about the future, and certainly focusing on a number of matters, including training and research and development, adaptation and flexibility.
Absolutely, David. And I'll zone in on something you've just said about the sort of stopgap that the government is giving us, obviously providing support there as they have in the past few weeks, and now obviously committing to further support in the months to come. But how should businesses be using this time to obviously not rest on their laurels, to potentially see the opportunity if they can, and be able to perhaps diversify, streamline their operations? Is this an opportunity?
Well,
sorry, Tony, you go.
Well, I was counting the minutes, David.
Oh, you're doing that, are you? Okay. No, you carry on.
Tony, you go.
I was waiting for the buffet, Dave, to open.
It's open.
Well, we really, as a country, we really have to start thinking as to where we want to be in 10, 15 years' time. We had an economy that was steaming ahead, but based on what I call the Dubai model. Bring in a low-skilled labor, low-skilled employees, and generally the Dubai model was what it was. David is talking about the Swiss model. The Swiss model, you can't go to Switzerland. Switzerland will not allow anybody in. You have to have the Swiss that work in Switzerland. And they have to be well-trained, well-skilled. For every Swiss, for every person normally in another industry in Switzerland, where you have 4 or 5 in an industry, in Switzerland you have 1. Because they cost a lot of money, and you have to train them, and you have to skill them, and you have to provide them with the latest equipment in order to get the productivity up. So what I agree with David is we need to have a vision. That is what we are missing at the present moment.
True.
If the vision does not come, we have a problem, so how are we going to solve it? The vision comes from, 2 years ago I was accused when I didn't realize there was going to be COVID. 2 years ago I was saying, look, if you haven't started your accommodation, if you haven't started spending money on building a hotel, don't do it because there's going to be overcapacity. I was accused at the time of saying, don't invest in Malta. I wasn't doing that at all. I was working out the numbers. We were already having overcapacity. I think that anybody that took my advice at the time should actually send me a check for 10%. And anybody that didn't, well, you should have sat down and looked at the numbers, So we need to give a vision. If we don't have a vision of where we want to be, we had a vision some years ago that we should be a financial services center. If we really want to be a financial service center, then we have got to do things which make this jurisdiction a jurisdiction of choice. And anything that does not drive us in that direction should be eliminated. So, do we want to have a financial services industry in Malta? Because at this moment in time, we're doing things which take us further away from that, not bring us forward.
Tony, I will ask you. Obviously, you are a very influential man in the sort of hospitality sector in Malta. What should our policymakers be working on at the moment? What should that vision be?
Okay, my view is as follows: we have a land area of 331 square kilometers. We are not Australia with a continent. Therefore, our ability to host numbers is not there. Therefore, we need to make sure that every person that comes to Malta is a person that has the ability to spend money. Now, it does not mean that we should all make it into 5-star, but we should certainly be the best in every category, because then we can afford to have the best coming to Malta. And we need to have more added value. And this is how I see us going forward because of what we have. If we were a Tunisia, I might have a different vision. But Malta is what it is.
And pre-COVID, were we going that way? Were we focusing on a vision that is in line with what you recommend?
Well, unfortunately, politics being what it is, everybody wants to have a record. So, we counted our success by the number of arrivals coming to Malta. And consequently, this was the push all the time. And of course, because we had people who were building more accommodation and building more of this and more of that, then there was even more push against the politicians to make sure that we brought in the numbers. So we as a country now need to get together and decide where we want to be. It's not where Tony Zahra wants to be, it's where the country wants to be.
Absolutely. And David, I'll bring that down to you because, again, we want to talk about sort of opportunity here. How should we be starting to think of this as the opportunity to maybe shift into a new way of being? I mean, many of us before COVID hit, annoyed by construction, annoyed by sort of continuous growth, not necessarily from the economic boom perspective, but what it has meant for our quality of life. Do we have an opportunity here to fix aspects of that? And can we claw back where it has already gone wrong?
Okay, I would like to say yes to all of that, but I need to qualify. Definitely, all businesses, small, medium, or large, should find the energies within themselves at any time in their history, COVID or no COVID, to stop and think. And when that happens, that allows any business to think, to regenerate, to research, to understand what doesn't work, what probably it discovers probably what could work better. That we normally would call a business plan. So normally most businesses and most of our viewers today are thinking this is what they do. They actually do have some sort of a document that talks of what the competition looks like, what they do, what they could do better, what their efficiencies could be coming from, what does the technology world offer, what are the potential markets, where are the potential markets, and maybe what new business lines or tweaking to my business one could do. That's a business plan. What we have advocated, especially now, there's no better time when one is definitely, stop and think is the term I used before. We have stopped, whether we like it or not, we have stopped. And that should allow us to think. And if while stopping and thinking now, and not allow this opportunity to be lost, we're able to design what is a professional business plan for each and every one of our businesses, especially those who do not find it in themselves, it's not in their DNA to have a formalized business plan, then this is the time to really regenerate, rethink, become stronger, and maybe move into directions that otherwise, when we were too busy, would not have considered. So as we heard as well last Monday, the Prime Minister and the ministers for the finance and the economy were talking about support through an injection of monies, of financial support towards the design of business plans for every business, 5,000 euros from my memory. That means that this is the time, yes, to engage, professional people, to ask us all the intelligent, silly, out-of-the-box questions for us to really think about this really hard. And the output to that would be a direction, a vision for each business that drives success. Clearly at the top of that, as Tony rightfully said, we need a national vision. We really need to know what it is that we're doing in the light of what it is that we're doing as a country. If that's not clear and we allow ourselves to take decisions on the basis of gut feeling, only because there's no national direction, then there is risk. So and we have not as of late not seen much vision, except maybe for a direction of 400 million euros in industrial space for the industries of tech, AI, and the Internet of Things and all that. That's great. I think we've also heard something about the green economy and the circular economy in Malta. Hopefully not lip service. We're really hoping that that becomes a vision that the country would embrace, and that will change our business ambitions and, of course, our quality of life. But then, if our businesses are able to, in their own little world, and collective world and sectors, that is as well, are able to come up with an individual vision for every company, then we stand to have a robust, resilient economy because our businesses are resilient. Two more things. With the think tank I mentioned earlier, if the output of that is fed into all of these businesses, then the ambition to try and find the right ways of beating COVID right now is fed by the results, the output of our think tank feeds these business plans, then the businesses are able to arrive there a bit better and stronger. In addition, if we all realize that business plans and stopping to think every so often is a good thing, and we post-COVID, when this becomes part of our history books, and we're living our normal life in the future, if we're able to stop and think and develop or update business plans regularly, that is tantamount to a resilient economy of its true sorts. Because resilience is really about not just carrying on with what you normally do and do more potentially, only to find that you will crash one day, but to be able to adapt, to be able to learn, to be able to research, to be able to learn from other people's experiences and move in directions that are more robust, more resilient, and probably more profitable.
Absolutely, David, and that is obviously what we want to be getting towards. I'll come to you both now with a question about your membership. Have you seen this enthusiasm? Do you think that now your members are able to move past the stress of the past few weeks and look not only towards getting back into recovery mode, but perhaps into doing things differently, better for the wider economy, better for the planet, and all of that? Tony, I'll come to you first.
Well, our members are thinking about the here and now. I spoke about this only 2 days ago when I was asked on the set, should we be thinking about this and about that? The reality is that if you have a restaurant anywhere, we have just lost 50,000 dinners every single day. Every single day, there's 50,000 dinners that are not being served. And this is not going to be replaced by the Maltese consumer. The Maltese consumer was always there. If we manage to get the Maltese consumer to spend a little bit more, how much more can it generate? Another 10%, another 15% on the previous? It's not going to replace those numbers that we had. So, yes, we are all thinking that the airport will return some normality. We are all hoping and we are all living, trying to ensure that we survive. But the numbers are the numbers. And people have to start taking into account that this is what it is. I wish I could be much more positive, but having said that, I think we would be doing a disservice to everybody if we're not realistic with what is happening and what can be expected going forward and plan accordingly. If we sit back and think that the government is going to pay our salaries and our rent and for the next 3 years, then I think we would be doing a disservice to our members. So whilst I don't want to finish off on a note which is non-positive, because personally I'm a very positive person, but I want to finish off on a realistic note. This is what it is. We have lots of other opportunities. We can move forward, but not necessarily in the same way that we were moving pre-COVID. David, your turn. I've had my fill.
No. I certainly will not want to do otherwise, Tony. I think it is very important that people like us talk realistically, and the reality is not as good as one would like to paint it. I think unemployment numbers will increase. I think businesses will need to face, unless they do something really dramatic now, will need to face the effects of COVID, especially when we realize that the employment with the wage supplement starts drying out, and we really need to stand on our own 2 feet. Most businesses are actually doing that. The here and now is actually what most, yes, I would dare say, even from a chamber perspective, what most members are worried about, maybe rightfully, but it is up to us really to say, you have a potentially a 3-month window, summer, with maybe some sort of internal consumption, some sort of wage supplement support, some, support in your wage, electricity bills and all that. This will all go away. But in these 3 months, and we really urge all of our members to really do a business plan, to really think of what's going to happen beyond all of this, because businesses need to stand on their own 2 feet. And yes, actions will need to be taken. On the other hand, of course, whilst I can, if we talk about retail, just to be a bit also to tie in with what Tony said, I'm moving into retail and maybe move to manufacturing just to give you a glimpse. Retail, of course, some of them are losing money on a day-to-day basis, like restaurants are, I suppose, because they opened the doors, whatever, 4 weeks, 5 weeks ago. They had approximately 20% of the revenues compared to last year on the first week, and they thought that was a great start. It dropped to 10% or less in the second week and the third, and now hovers anything between 20 and 50, because some actually managed even 50, just to be clear. And that is, of course, now to do with how able we are to improve customer confidence, how able we are to manage the social distancing condition that we have, the cost of sanitization, hygiene, space, and all. We're learning our ways, but social distancing will bring about a reduction in capacity for economy, which is inherent. So we're going to have to live with this for a good year and a half, or whatever it's going to take. In manufacturing, we have discovered, we always knew, but the country, I think, has discovered that manufacturing is a very important staple part of our economy. We think and construction does that. No, it's manufacturing. Manufacturing is a very important part of our economy. All factories remained open, with all the difficulties of having a very important person in the chain of manufacturing that is on quarantine leave for 2 weeks. That's serious, HR management. But have been resilient enough not only to carry on, but actually to provide in taxes and VAT and all to the economy in our country. And unless we realize that we really need to take care of that industry, because usually we might think that is something we would export to China and all that. Now that we realize that manufacturing close to home is actually part of the country's resilience, and the fact that we realize that these are the resilient economies that will be with us through thick and thin, then we need to have a good portion of our economy that sits with manufacturing. But then again, people in events, people who are working in logistics, and look at the people who bring all the products to and from our country. They drive through the roads of all the countries in Europe, shut or not, and with all the costs that they bring in, sometimes with reduced loads, because that's what our economy is like, and they still work. And they are an essential part of our economy. Logistics for Malta is the center point that gets everything else to work. Logistics, we rarely talk about this. Events, of course, and so many other people. The people who take care of our elderly at home, in the homes, they have went through thick and thin to try and preserve, of course, their clients. to keep them away from everybody else, going into incredible expenditure to, of course, protect our vulnerable, which is now another part of our business, if you like, national business, but their business. So there's a lot of adaptation. I think there have been, of course, some really intelligent people who realize that producing a meal and delivering it at home in the most efficient of ways is actually a good business direction. Those supermarkets have increased their capacity to deliver groceries to the homes of people. It's become a trend that we hope will be picked up even further, because that clearly would keep people away from public spaces such as a supermarket. At the same time, why would you want to carry 10 kilos of shopping home when somebody can bring it to your house? And these are therefore the new ways of digitalization. Certainly will change our life for sure. Look at what we're doing now. Would we have done this 3 months ago? We'd probably be in a hall somewhere with so many people in a hall, maybe launched on social media, but we'll be there physically and speaking to each other. Absolutely. Life will change on the basis of the opportunities presented to us by COVID, but hopefully realization that life will be different, our values will be different, even our respect for the fragility of the planet has grown, and therefore the ability to shape our economy, our businesses to reflect that, in respect of that, hopefully will be our positive take home from this serious experience we're going through right now.
Thank you very much, David, for that. Again, great insight there. I can't believe how quickly the time has flown today, because as you said, David, we've barely scratched the surface of everything that we could be talking about when it comes to the economy in both of the sectors that you two gentlemen so very well represent. But I will just ask you, before we close off for today, could I ask you both to share perhaps your one piece of business advice for entrepreneurs at the moment, something that perhaps could take them forward, inspire them today, and of course have benefit in the weeks and months to come. Tony, I'll come to you first.
Yes, thank you, Joe. That's a difficult one at the end of at the start of a new life. I would suggest that think out of the box, make sure that your operation is working very, very streamlined on a tight, keep your costs down, because generating revenue is going to be very difficult. So hit the costs rather than the revenue.
Thank you, Tony. Excellent. Thank you, David.
Okay, my mantra in these circumstances, first of all, anyone who's listening to us, is running a business or is part of a business, and all businesses go through highs and lows. This is one major low, clearly. But like all lows, we all know that after that, there's going to be a correction, and that needs a couple of ingredients. One is, like Tony said, I certainly agree with him, think outside the box, do not take anything for granted. I would add to that, be positive and ensure that you are full of positive energy, because this positive energy is actually a very important ingredient to be able to fight the complexities of this pandemic, which is not only economic, but it's also mental health, the mental health influences it has on us and the people around us, and the physical health, which is obvious. So positive energies, eat well, and keep fit. I honestly believe in these things, and surround yourselves by people who are energized to be creative, because that is also a very important area. Be creative and drag, and pull the systems up. And if it needs surgery, and that is what your actions are telling you, take action and do whatever it takes in reskilling your staff, in redirecting your business, and making sure that your people are healthy is probably what will take us through this one. But actually, the end result is when we will pick up ourselves up, it will be a huge learning curve. This is going to fill us with so much experience that I would dare say that we're going to be immune, if that's the term, to immune to the many other herd immunity, but immune in a business prepared sense. Yes, that's what I mean to say. In a disruptor. This is the largest disruptor we can think of. So we will be able to battle any other disruptive environment in a manner that we have not been able to experience or been able to do before.
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you both so much for the advice that you've shared today. I hope to have you on the show again in the future so that we can continue to delve into this conversation. To all of you watching us at home or perhaps now back at the office, again, thank you for being with us. Thank you for listening in to some of Malta's top business minds. And we look forward to seeing you again on the Boardroom next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Off to the buffet.
Ciao.